Welcome to part 5 of the RLD Basics tutorials. In this video, we're going to be covering how to create and edit tables and check your calculations using those tables. If you're interested in how we got here, go check out parts 1 through 4 on our website and YouTube channel. So for the next few videos, we're going to be covering viewing inside of our project summary. And to get started with tables, go ahead and click on the Table Edit button or go to the left under Tables and click Manage. Now, there are no tables in this project as of yet, since it's still a new project, so let's go ahead and add a new table. Now, you'll notice it gives us a default name and a default description, and there's no icon up here because we haven't edited the table yet. So let's go ahead and click on it to start editing. Now, this looks a lot more like many of the other parts of the website that we've been over in previous parts. In the middle here, we have the area where the table will show up. It even prompts us to drag in a field. On the left, we'll see all the fields, including the ones we made in part 2 in our input form, and the ones we made in part 4 as part of our calculations. If you go on the right here, you'll see some of the options for this table. Right now, this only includes name and description, but as we add more fields, you'll see this expand. So for now, let's go ahead and give our table a name. I'm going to call this one our time table, and I'm going to give it a description. All the time stats for each activity. Great. So now with the name and description, we can get started by dragging in a field. So I'm going to start by dragging in our activity field. Now you'll notice immediately, if you watched any of the earlier parts, that a whole bunch of the values from our input form are showing up in here. And if I go ahead and drag time, you'll actually see some of the times that you could have noticed as part of our data sets portion of these videos. So we've got 2 hours, 5 hours, 1 hour, and so on. And if we're interested to start checking how our calculations work, we can start doing that with the calculation fields. So let's start by looking Activities Plus. If you remember right, we were taking the activity and adding the word done to the end of it. And voila, we can see that it's working just how we intended to have it work. And if I go down here to minutes time spent, it's actually going to be the number of hours multiplied by 60 to get the number of minutes spent doing that activity. And there we go. If you check the math on that, we'll notice that it's working. And the same is true with the seconds of time spent. So now we know that all of our calculations are working exactly how we wanted them to. So let's move on to styling this table a little bit and all the things you can do to edit and manipulate your table. Let's start by getting rid of Activities Plus. So you'll notice it highlights when I go over it. Let me go ahead and click on that. And let me click this delete button at the top there. There we go. So now it's deleted. It won't show up on the table. And now let's go into actually changing how this table looks. So you'll notice a whole bunch of new options on the side here. Test data includes all the stuff for our data sets and how much data is shown in the table. We won't be going over that right now since it's a little more advanced. But what we will get into are all the other things here, starting with borders. So I might want to change a little bit of how the borders look. In fact, I want to change this line right here between all the records and the headers on the table. So I'll go ahead and I'll see that separation is turned on. If I turn it off, you'll see it go away. And I want to make it bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and click right here. You'll notice it got larger up there, and I can even change its color. Let's change it to red. Awesome. And I can do this with any of these. So you'll notice if I turn them all on, there will be a large number of lines included in the table. I'm going to turn a couple of them off just to make it look a bit better. Okay, cool. Let's get out of borders and let's go to fonts. So I actually want the font for my header to be a lot bigger than it is right now, and I want it in italic. So I click italic, and I'll click right around here. Maybe a little too big. Let's go down. There we go. That's perfect. And let me even change the color to be a nice blue, bluish purple. Awesome. All right, so we've gotten through fonts. We can even change some of the stuff for the data in our table, although I'm not interested in that. Let's go ahead and go to spacing. So I can change horizontal or vertical spacing. And you'll notice as you change the range slider, it shows you so you can get an idea of what it'll look like. It'll let you edit it exactly how you would like it to be. So I'm going to turn that all the way up, and vertically I just want a little more space. There we go. Now, to the really cool part is row colors. We want to make these rows a lot easier to pick out when people are looking at them initially. So I'll go ahead and I'll add a row down here, and you'll notice it's gray. Row 1 and 2 are different colors. and you'll notice it alternates between their colors. It'll do a pattern that is as long as the number of rows that you have down here. So if I add 3 rows and change this one to a red, you'll notice it goes no color, gray, and red. No color, gray, and red. So let me go ahead and change these colors a little bit and get rid of this row 3. I want this to be a little bit lighter, and I want this to actually be a bit gray as well. All right, there we go. My table looks exactly how I want it to look, although I don't like that activity is not capitalized. So let me go ahead and click on activity, and you'll notice field settings show up down here. Let's open that up, and you'll see the label on the top here. Initially, it just takes the name of that field, but if we would like to, we can go ahead and change it here. Bam. Now it is activity and it's capitalized. You'll also notice a whole bunch of other settings down here. We can go ahead and change where the actual header or text shows up. So I could put it to the left, I can put it to the right, and you'll notice it changes for the data as well. And if I'd like to, I can change the field's width entirely. Right now it's auto, but if I put it to fixed, you'll notice I can put it to 300, and it gets much larger than any of the other fields. Now, you'll notice that there's a fixed in 0 places. This doesn't work for strings. This actually works for numbers. So let's click on minutes of time spent, and let's go ahead and click fixed. Now, if anyone gives us a time that has decimal points in it, it won't show up with this option. So that's all the basics of the stuff that you can do with a table in RLD. There's one more thing I want to show you, and we'll have to go create a new table to do it. So let's go ahead and go back to manage. And you'll see our table is actually showing up here. It looks exactly like we just made it a second ago. And if I go ahead and click add a new table and click to edit it, I'm going to name this one time per activity. So you might remember we did an average amount of time spent for activity calculation. So let's go ahead and see that here. So let's start by putting our activity field in here, since that is how we're going to see this calculation. Then we're going to take our average time spent field and we're going to throw it over here. And something really cool is going to happen. Bam. So we just went from having every record of every time we worked out or went to work or read or spent time with friends, and now we have one entry in the table for each different activity and the average amount of time spent on that activity. See, RLD is really smart, and it knows that your calculation was made with a group by on activity. So when you throw in that calculation with activity, it's really smart and it gives you exactly what you're looking to get out of it. So this is all of the basics of tables in this video. In the next video, we're going to go over the other type of visualization that you can do in RLD, graphs.